Hello and welcome to our review of the Firefly episode Jaynestown. I'm Paul,
I'm Dave.
and this is going to be a good time. This episode originally aired October 18th, 2002, attracting 4.3 million viewers. I'll just go through the WWF champion because it hasn't changed. It is still Brock Lesnar. But number one movie in America this week. We're getting close to Halloween. I would consider this more of a Halloween movie than the previous one.
The one particular thing that's coming to my mind is Scream, but I'm just not sure if it was the case of just what's kind of been floating around on the internet over the last little bit of time, or just with when it was released. It might have been earlier or later. I'm not exactly sure, but
There's
I'll go with my
there's no
guess.
Scream movie in 2002.
Now with two. Okay.
No, I can tell you that because I'm a major Scream fan.
Hmm.
Any other guesses?
Nothing that immediately pops in.
Okay, so the answer is a little movie called The Ring.
Ooh.
I don't know if
Well,
you're.
that was one. That was one of the particular ones I remember scrolling when searching around for Halloween movies. It just never clicked with me weirdly, though.
I think I've seen it once, and I didn't really care for it, but I don't know. Anyway, number one song in America this week. Any guesses?
Is it still sticking with. It's there, but the name is escaping me. I can't recall it. But from last week, is it still? I'm guessing because from where it came from and all the big. The words. How big it was.
It is not Kelly Clarkson's A Moment Like This. It is a different song.
Hmm.
It's a song that we have discussed previously on this show, though.
Actually discussed.
Well, I mean, it's come up in previous episodes. I'm not familiar with the song, and I don't think you would be either, but it has been the number one song on previous episodes.
Okay, so for a time it was like, oh man, this song, but then it's like, okay, back to the status quo, get this one back on the top.
Well, we're jumping around through time, so this one was the number one song for like end of October and early November.
Okay. Yeah, in that case, I've forgotten it already.
It's Dilemma by Nelly featuring Kelly Rowland.
Yeah,
Don't ask me what the song is because I have no idea.
ditto.
Alrighty. So this episode opens with Kaylee insisting that the always proper Simon never swears, despite his argument that he does whenever it's appropriate, even though that's kind of, not the point of swearing. Inara departs for an overnight meeting with a client. Jane attempts to use tape to smuggle a concealed weapon on the mission against planetary regulations. Apparently afraid he'll be recognized for crimes he committed some years back, but Mal orders him to leave the gun behind.
Mm.
The crew arrive at the town of Canton disguised as buyers of mud, a clay which can be processed to produce a ceramic described as 10 times stronger than steel. Jane is fearful as years before he robbed the local magistrate. After talking to the foreman, they enter the town where they find a statue of the hero of Canton, which is Jane.
Hmm.
Much to Jane's shock and puzzlement, a local folk song reveals that Jane is viewed as a Robin Hood despite during the botched robbery. Jane reveals the true story, which is that he was forced to jettison the money to lighten his getaway vehicle, a stolen hovercraft, after it was hit. The loot apparently rained down on the impoverished mutters of Canton. Jane is recognized and finds himself idolized by the locals. Mal's smuggling contact is horrified by how his crew seems to be laying low. But Mal decides to use this distraction to sneak the contraband through town undetected. On the ship, sorry?
Yeah, that pretty much works. If a situation kind of lands in your lap, never hurts to use it.
Well, absolutely. On the ship, an agitated River dismantles Shepherd Book's Bible, insisting that it makes no sense and that she has to fix it. Book manages to calm her down and explains that the Bible is not about making sense in a logical or scientific sense, but rather about faith that fixes people rather than needing fixing itself. Later, she attempts to repair and return it to him, but panics when she sees his wild head of hair, per some rule of his order that he normally keeps in a tight bun. He does have, like, I don't even know how to describe his hair. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the foreman informs the magistrate that Jane Cobb has returned, the magistrate releases a man named Stitch from what appears to have been 4 years of solitary confinement in a very small cell. He gives the puzzled man a loaded shotgun and tells him that Jane is back. Uh, where are we? Oh, yes. Mal returns to fetch Kaylee and Simon, finding the mechanic draped over him on a couch. He tries to explain to Mal how nothing happened, but once again manages to insult the incredibly frustrated Kaylee. Collecting a tipsy Jane, they head off, but Kaylee stops Simon in his tracks with her scorn. As the doctor eats breakfast alone, Stitch arrives. The scarred criminal brutalizes him in an attempt to locate Jane, but the roars of an improving crowd outside give away his location instead. Stitch drags Simon along as a hostage to confront Jane. Stitch tells the cat mutters that Jane and he stole the money, and that when they found themselves needing to reduce weight, Jane threw him overboard, and then the safe with the money. Stitch then shoots, but a mutter jumps in front of Jane and is killed. Jane kills Stitch, but cannot understand why the young man sacrificed himself after having learned the truth of Jane's heroism. The crew boards Serenity. Wash attempts to take off, but finds the ship landlocked per the magistrate's order. It is quickly released, however, as Fess decides to prove himself a man by defying his father's order to capture the hero of Canton. Fess was a guy that Inaria had spent some time with earlier.
Yes,
Kim
yes.
has a heart-to-heart talk with Simon, but cannot resist briefly making him worry about what happened after the previous night's party, which is very funny. In the cargo bay, Jane broods about the murder sacrifice and how the townfolk will probably put the statue back up. Mal attempts to explain to Jane the hero worship is not about him, but about what the townfolk need. But Jane only replies, "Don't make no sense."
Yeah, it's a tricky thing with that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Now, what did you think of this episode, Dave?
It turned out pretty good. Sort of seeing things come out in that sort of way, just his reaction with, see, the statue.
It's very funny. He pulls some good faces.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls
But
some
not
very...
just on whole with the whole scene of the story of everything there, going with all the angles that they decide to take with it, turned out pretty good. Like, there's always the one particular angle it could take with them discovering the particular words, discovering that he's not really the hero or the whole story of things, and then kind of going with a liar reveal sort of story and turning on him immediately. But no, with this one, it went with a bit more nuance. Kind of, the village had its own sort of hero worship to have with that sort of thing. It wasn't so much about him specifically, but the events that happened.
Yeah. I think it's a fun story, and it's always fun seeing Jane kind of out of his element because he's such a particular character, and like the minute you take him out of like you put him in a situation he doesn't know what to do, it's very funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you have nothing else about this episode, Dave, because I don't really.
Nah, same on me.
Alrighty, so next week we will be discussing the episode Out of Gas.
Oh boy.
So there's going to be an explosion in the engine room, which leaves Serenity. Which leaves Serenity with the engine and backup, with the engine and life support system and its backup all out of commission, with only a few hours of oxygen left. Mal and his crew leave in two shuttles while Mal has the crew leave in two shuttles while he remains aboard and hopes to contact a passing ship. And we're going to see a bunch of flashbacks about how like he got the ship and the crew, and it's going to be good.
Okay, that'll be interesting. Though it does bring back some flashbacks to another particular series that's rolling around in my head.
What are you thinking?
Cowboy Bebop, surprisingly enough.
Oh, they did an episode like that, didn't they?
Something like that, though story is a teeny bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. From memory, it's one of the best episodes of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that'll be a good time. So until next time, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.